Okay, and here we go. So let's go. Imam al-Bayhaqi narrated with a weak chain from Abu Rafi' radiallahu anhu from the Prophet of God sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the rights of the child over the father include being taught writing, swimming, and archery. A father has to teach his son how to swim. Just think about that. I don't know, just reflect on this. A father has to teach his son how to swim. A father has to teach his son how to fire arrows. A father has to teach his son many things. In another narration, by the way, I was thinking about this, the Prophet of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a father has a duty to teach his son good manners. Right? And everybody knows that. That's quite obvious. But then I was thinking, in a sense, what the Prophet ﷺ is saying, through this you teach him. These are ways of teaching him manners and etiquette and ways of being. Primordiality is the thing I'm going to keep coming back to. Natural. The idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through these arts, you connect back to the fitrah. You connect back to Sayyidina Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. You connect back to the ancients, the Prophet of God alayhi salatu wasalam. These are fitri sports. Writing, swimming, and art. What does the Prophet ﷺ say? He says to the Quraysh, he says to Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Banu Salim, Banu Aslam. But he says to the tribe who he sees firing arrows, the tribe of Salam ibn Aqwa, he says to them, your father Ismail was an archer, so fire arrows. That's what he said, summoning Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. The primordial prophet, Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Ismail, what are they? They're Hanifiyya. They're the ones who revived the fitrah. Then the Prophet of God, in a hadith in the Sunnah of Imam al-Nasa'i, the Prophet ﷺ said, everything other than the remembrance of Allah is idle talk and heedlessness. Everything's a waste of time. Except 4 things. Walking between 2 targets during archery practice, training one's horse, playing with one's spouse, and swimming. Everything else is a waste of time. Batil, laghu, a waste of your time, a waste of your human potential, a waste of the reason why Allah has sent you to this earth. Except what? Between targets. Archery, firing arrows. Archery we'll talk about next week. Oh my gosh, I need to, because I'm going to forget. You have to bring your bow apparently. This is you, right? You have apparently, Monokash has an ancient bow or something. What do you have? Like a horse bow or something? I don't know. What? Is it not you? I heard it's one of those that mere mortal humans can't even pull. Somebody told me this. Brother Asa, he rang me, he goes, tell Monokash I'll bring his bow, he's going to do a demonstration. So you go get rid of that stage fright. You go practice at home in the garden or something. Is that not that big?
It's still pretty strong.
How big is the one? How as big as the one you do? 50 pounds. I have no idea if this is good or bad. Is that heavy? Is that heavy, Molana? Does that mean he's stronger than you?
He's definitely strong.
Really? Oh, see, that's part of the lesson. It's not about muscles and things. It's spiritual power. Jay.
The teachers once said that the Sahaba, the rough poundage of theirs,
Yeah.
45, 50, was about
100 pounds, crazy. Yeah, and if you see like the swords of the Sahaba and things, they're very, very formidable things. Like I think we have some of them still, and when they describe them as well, they're very hefty objects. And you say, Khalid, what is it? One about 8 swords or 9 swords he broke in the battle, and they would carry them one-handed. Okay. Then, this is also very interesting, the notion of games that waste your time. Okay, so there's something in this. Now, I don't literally mean this, I just like this because he's a young man, he's a young person. There is a narration where the Prophet ﷺ sees a companion, it's similar to this, and he's flicking pebbles with his thumb and his fingers or something, and the Prophet of God ﷺ tells him off. He says, we don't do things like this. And he says, why? Because you're going to take somebody's eye out, or you're going to hurt the animals. And there's other narrations, I think they were using animals as target practice, and he told them off, you don't do this. These are not prophetic ways of being. Right? But you see, there's such thing as evil sport. There's such thing as, like, I don't want to call it demonic sport, because I think the mullahs have been calling football that for decades now at this point. But I'm meaning, like, there are sports that will waste your time. That you'll come out of it. I know a brother who told me, I used to watch like football for like 7 hours in the evening. I watched the game would finish. Then another game's on, I watch the next one. Then I watch the next one. 90 minutes, the whole thing, full, beginning to end. And then my evening's gone. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, how can you do that? Just But they say, it's like Rome, it's the Colosseum, it's just there, it's a distraction. You're being pulled in. This is also nice. We look at the chain. Ibn Abi Hakam al-Ghifari says, my grandmother narrated to me from the uncle of Abu Rafi ibn Amr al-Ghifari. It's a chain of family, just narrating a story about their grandfather, who said, I was a young boy throwing stones at the date palms of the Ansar. I was brought to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, boy, why are you throwing stones at the date palms? He said, so that I may eat. He's trying to knock the dates down so he can eat. He said, do not throw stones at the date palms. Eat instead what falls from beneath them. Then but he gave him a solution. He wiped over his head and said, oh Allah, fill his stomach. Okay, this is private. It was a private message. I shouldn't share this. Accidentally, it's come now. I'm joking. This is from Sheikh Abdul Aziz Suraqa, because he mentioned something interesting in his Sirah classes. And then I asked him, and he just sent me this message. He says, wa alaikum salam. There is no direct explicit narration about training. I was talking about because he mentions that the Prophet of God ﷺ would have trained in archery. But we don't have an explicit narration about this. We have him firing arrows, but we don't have this childhood training. So I said, where did you get this from? So then he gives me this. It is deduced from the narrations of him learning archery while young in the Banu Sa'd hinterlands. I've never come across this. But I take Shaykh Abdul Aziz's word for it, that there is a narration of the Prophet ﷺ learning archery when he goes to the Bedouins of Banu Sa'd. Primordiality again, yeah? And the narration of Ibn Sa'd's Tabaqat that positively affirm him shooting arrows during one of the skirmishes in Hurub al-Fijar. So he says, I assume from this that the Prophet ﷺ would have been trained in archery. We will talk about training in archery next week because it does exist. The Sahaba did train in archery, and that is true. Did the Prophet ﷺ train? We don't really know. Even his wrestling, the narrations of him wrestling Rukana ibn Abi Yazid, if you read them, they read very miraculous. It's not like it reads like, for 15 years he trained in the mountains of Mecca, and then he met Rukana and he fought him and he defeated him. Rukana actually says, I felt a divine presence wrestling me as he wrestled me. You can read that yourself. Because that's from the Prophet ﷺ early time of prophethood, that we're not going to go into that. But in the book Prophetic Grappling, the narrations are all there. And there's a wonderful reconciliation done by Asim Ayyub. Okay, this is powerful. Al-Ahd al-Thalith wal-Khamsun. Abdul Wahhab al-Sha'rani writes a book. It's called The Muhammadan Covenants. It's the oaths and the promises that were taken by the Ummah of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ from him. Abdul Wahhab al-Sha'rani, 16th century Egyptian Shadri scholar, great Imam of the Sufi tradition. Tasawwuf, very formidable. Everybody quotes him. Recently, I think our Hazrat Asrar Rashid Sahib was quoting him when he was refuting Chuf Chuf Pir. Okay, so he's like a very strong authority in the Tasawwuf tradition. No matter where you're from. I'm just trying to make that point very clear, all the schools of thought, as long as you affirm Tasawwuf, they would quote him. He is a great authority. He writes this amazing book. What are the promises that we took from our Prophet ﷺ that we must preserve and protect? This is a summarized form. This is Shaykh Abdul Rahman Sha'ar's summary version of this, but I think it's still quite powerful. He says, أُخِذَ عَلَيْنَا الْأَحْدُ الْعَامِ مِنْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. An oath was taken from us, by us, from the Prophet of God alayhi salatu wasalam. Is everything okay, sir? Put the mic higher. Is it me? Am I moving too much? Higher up? How's that? It's gone quiet now. Okay. أن لا نتهاون بترك تعلم آلات الجهاد كالرمي بالنشاب والمسارعة والمدافعة ونحو ذلك. That we would not, tahawan is a very interesting word. It sort of means we will not humiliate ourselves, or we will not weaken ourselves. We will not make ourselves fragile and weak and powerless by abandoning learning the arts of jihad, like firing arrows and running and self-defense and the like. And that if we do take them on, that we don't abandon them after having learned them. That we don't learn them and then we leave them. So that we lose our mastery in these arts. So he's saying you should, number one, become a master in the martial arts. We'll talk about what the martial arts might be. Then he says if you learn them, don't let go of them. Hold on to them, preserve them, protect, have mastery. We'll talk about mastery as well. He says this, وَهَذَا الْأَحْدُ قَلِيلٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. He says, this covenant very few people abide by. Because they rely on the army of the Sultan. This is a very powerful point he's making. They rely on the army of the Sultan. Why do I need to learn how to fight? PC Bob is going to protect me. Why do I need to learn to look after myself? Sergeant Dada, he's going to look after me. Why did Thames Valley Police have got me on locks? Or my cousin who knows how to fight? I don't know, whatever. I don't need to be able to take care of myself. And what he's sort of reflecting here, he goes, then he says, look at this, وَيَقُولُ إِذَا وَقَعَ دُخُولُ عَدُوٍ If the enemies enter our lands, the person says, this is the person is saying, if the army of the enemy enters our lands, then the army of the Sultan will suffice, they'll protect us. Then he says, all of this is cowardice, and it's laziness, and it's a dry temperament. Or it's like, you're a loser. You're a loser. This is loser mentality. This is not how you should think. Why? Why is he saying this? Because he's saying, at any second, you don't know, we've reflected on this a lot. All of the institutions that you rely on right now, in a second could collapse. They could be disintegrated. Look at Ukraine. Look at any of these. Look at Venezuela now. They have no idea what's going to happen next. The collapse of institutional strength. All of it suddenly goes. Social cohesion, harmony. In Bosnia, it was your next door neighbor who would come to take care of your family. Meaning, when I say take care, I mean in a negative sense. It's the guys you grew up with. It's all gone. Bosnia is just a prime example, because if you read Ali Izetbegovic and he's reflecting on this, he says the Serbs came for us, they put arms embargoes, so nobody's allowed to get weapons because they thought that's going to stop it. The Serbs managed to obviously get weapons from Serbia and the neighboring allies, Russia and all of these countries, and the Bosnians had nothing. They had nobody. The Europeans didn't want to help them. Why? Because they always had this anxiety about European white Muslims living in the midst of Europe, so they didn't really want to help them. And so they're like, he didn't know. And then he actually talks about this. He goes, I was like messaging warlords. Like, oh, can you get me weapons? Arms dealers, to try to get weapons. And waiting for them in secret places while they landed with their planes to give us guns and all of this thing. And suddenly, there's a Muslim weakness. Now you're not able to fight. And then we saw that everybody knows the horrors that took place. Srebrenica and others. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on them. We'll reflect on this again in a second. And then he says, also from the adab that we've taken from the Prophet ﷺ is that we not weaken ourselves by abandoning learning how to swim in the sea. I don't know, look at this. I can't swim at all. Terrible. I don't know, who can swim here? What's this? This is like yes, no? Oh, you're resting, okay. Nobody can swim. Okay, 4 people on this, 5. Okay, and there's some sisters. Yeah, okay. Oh, we're fine then. Okay, it's just me. I'm in a lot of trouble. I have to walk around with armbands or something. He says we don't abandon learning how to swim in the sea, because there's a chance the enemy will make our situation very, very fragile. That he will take us to the edge of the sea and then we're destroyed. And he's Egyptian, right? So he's actually thinking we're legging it from the enemy. You get to the seashore and now you're done. Where are you going to go? You're dead. And he said, if only we had known how to swim, we could have saved ourselves. And then he says, and this is nice, I like this. He goes, our Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari, rahimahullah ta'ala, from the great Imams of the Shafi'is, Shaykh al-Islam. If you say Shaykh al-Islam to a Shafi'i, that's Zakaria al-Ansari. Very, very great Shaykh. In spite of his old age, he would swim the Nile River every single year once. Zakaria al-Ansari, Shaykh al-Islam. The man of the books, Hashi on Sharh al-Aqaid, Hashi on every book, the great Imam of the Shafi'is. I don't know much about Shafi fiqh. I know he has a Hashi on Sharh al-Aqaid because but this is what he's saying. And he would say, our Shaykh, when we would ask him about this, he would say, I am scared that I will lose my mastery in swimming. I need to protect my mastery in swimming. And then he says, to not be able to swim is a deficiency in a human being. Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari said this. And then he quotes the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says that whosoever is taught how to fire arrows, then he abandons it, then he is not from among us, or he has disobeyed the Prophet ﷺ. And whosoever learns how to fire arrows, then he forgets it, then that is a blessing that he has been ungrateful for or rejected. And then he says, use these hadith of archery to reflect on all of the martial arts. They apply to all the martial arts. You must learn them, you must protect them, you must preserve them to the best of your ability. Men, primarily, women less so. But men for sure. The men of every community should have at least mastery in one martial art. 100%. Fact. It's just fact.